Welcome back. It's our time for some health. Malnutrition is a growing concern, with 24% of children under the age of 5 reduced growth relative to age, 6% experiencing weighing too little for their height, while 13% are underweight. Malnutrition is defined as an imbalance between the nutrients the body needs to function and the nutrients it receives. To eliminate malnutrition in the country, to talk about the elimination of malnutrition in the country, I'm joined now by Dr. Mekelaye Nghaamwa, who is a pediatrician. Dr. Nghaamwa, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for being here. Doctor, what is malnutrition in, of course, your own words, and what are the main causes of malnutrition amongst children, specifically in Namibia?
Well, you have already said it, Vanessa. Malnutrition is an imbalance of nutrients, meaning the quality and the quantity that you're giving is not adequate. Either it's excessive intake, which leads to obesity and overweight, or inadequate intake, which leads to wasting and what we call severe malnutrition. In Namibia, most kids, we don't have an obesity problem, we have an undernutrition problem. So most kids under 5 years are undernourished. And this can either be due to food insecurity, or some mothers do have food at their houses, but the quality of the food that they're giving is not adequate. It's not a balanced diet, and hence a nutritional deficiency.
We hear balanced diet a lot, and it's a term that I think most people expect the next person to understand what it is. But what is a balanced diet from a medical perspective?
So your balanced diet should consist of carbohydrates, so your rice and pastas and stuff like that, millet like mahangu or something. Your proteins, which will be your egg, fish, meat, and then your fat, which can come in all forms. So most of the time when we're weaning the kids, the children, because malnutrition is a disease of a child that's been weaned. Either it's early weaning, or we wean the kids and put them on maere and pap, and that's what the child is consuming most of the time. Meaning they're only getting milk, which is proteins, and then porridge, which is a bit of carbohydrates. They don't get other fats and stuff, and hence these kids get malnourished. Or they only on a shikundu diet, which is water and millet, and they get nothing else. So the quality is not good. Some kids are not getting sufficient diets, like the meals. Some of them will only get maybe breakfast and lunch, or lunch and dinner, and they eat like adults. But kids need more food because they need to use that calories for energy and to grow, to heal and develop. And
how would you go about diagnosing that, a child is malnutrition? Because you just mentioned also that obesity is also seen as being malnutrition.
Malnourished. So to diagnose kids, we use the World Health Organization growth charts, which you'll find in your health passports. It's specific for boys and girls, and we look at the child's weight and their height. And if their weight for height is, for instance, less than a -3 standard deviation, because there are lines there, then that will qualify the child as being severely wasted, which we call malnutrition. And then very few of them, if they are above the +3 standard deviation, will then become obese. But like I said, obesity is not the main problem. Undernourishment is the problem here. We also use their height for their age, and you find most of them are either standard compared to their peers. And we can also use the mid-upper arm circumference, where you check the body reserves, your muscle mass. And then lastly, if the child is admitted to hospital, you have to screen for micronutrient deficiencies, like your vitamin A deficiency. Some kids will be blind, or they have like a cloudy eye, and so forth. Or with vitamin D, they might have, for instance, ricket and so forth. So there are many ways to screen for them. But locally, seeing that your child is not growing, they're not gaining weight, that's one thing that mothers can identify. A child is not gaining weight compared to the other kids.
Doctor, what are the long-term consequences in terms of, health and development when a child is malnourished?
The long-term effect, the most important thing is good nutrition in a child's first 2 years of life. It helps with their growth and development and overall health. So a malnourished child is at risk of they don't reach their potential for the milestones. You find that they either regress, they're not sitting at the age that they should be sitting, or they delayed. Their capacity to learn and perform well in school is affected. Their immune system is compromised, and they are prone to infections. And you also find that they are too short for their age mates. So those are some of the effect. And worst of all, we have lost some kids to malnutrition, so they die. And that's not what we want to happen.
And although those are, things that you can look at in terms of trying to see if your child, is malnutritioned or not, it's not always the case, is it? If your child doesn't sit at a certain time frame between X and Y months, so it's not always the case that if that doesn't happen, it equals that the child is malnourished.
No, it's not always the case. There are many factors that will cause a child to be developmentally delayed, not reaching their milestone. It can be neurological problems. So malnutrition is just one of the factors. It's not the main one. It's mostly neurological problem that will cause a child to have developmental delay. Or maybe the child is just sick with other diseases, and hence they can't catch up because they've been sick for too long.
Are there any governmental or even non-governmental initiatives, within the country to combat malnutrition?
Yes, there are quite a number. The recent one is that the World Health Organization have updated the guidelines in management of malnutrition, and they're in the process of training health workers on how to, and the new guidelines. The government does ensure, together with UNICEF and WHO, that we have therapeutic food, which is the food that we give to malnourished kids when they're in hospital. We give them special milk that has everything to build their body. Outside the clinics, we also give them what we call plum peanuts. So it's a peanut mix with micronutrients, your vitamins and stuff that also help them to gain weight fast. So those are some of the initiatives. And lately, I've seen on the NBC page where you have local people come up with recipes, like Magnificent have come up with a recipe on sorghum porridge, which is very good. So making local food attractive and modernized so that people can grow. There is also Every Delights that's selling products in Spa, for instance. And these are locally food that we need to promote. Local grown food that we need to promote, which are balanced diet also.
How can doctor, healthcare professionals and organizations, collaborate to create sustainable efforts and solutions for eliminating malnutrition in Namibia?
The most important one, and first one, I'll say breastfeeding. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months is important, without weaning the child for the first 6 months.
And not a year, because we hear a lot of times that the first year is important to breastfeeding.
The first 6 months, when we say exclusive breastfeeding, is breast milk only, no water, nothing, no formula.
Right.
And then at 6 months, you start weaning the child, and you continue breastfeeding for a year up to 2 years. That's what we need to promote. Family planning is very important in Namibia. A lot of kids that are suffering from malnutrition, their siblings are just a few months behind or a year behind them. Family spacing is very important. As health workers, we can also teach mothers how to screen for malnutrition using the mid-upper arm circumference. There is a special tape that you just put around the child's arm. It's very easy to do, and it's color-coded. It shows you your child is in a yellow zone or in a red zone, and hence you can present to the clinic. Promoting immunization is also important in that it brings the kids to the hospital, and we, as health workers, we're able to screen them for growth and development and give them the immunization and treat them early. The key to managing malnutrition is to treat early and to prevent.
And how can communities get involved, doctor?
Communities can, again, promote breastfeeding, support young mothers in caring for their kids, in educating them what food to use. They can promote good nutrition practices. Everywhere we have peanuts, we have beans, we have mutete, we have sorghum, we have millet. We need to make it a norm for us to use our local Namibian food. Our food currently is westernized, and it's expensive to buy rice all the time. So using local produce is very good, it's very important. The other thing is backyard gardening can help you grow some vegetables for your child and your whole household. Also, for those entrepreneurs and stuff, locally we can have egg layers, and you can have eggs to sell to your community, which will be much cheaper than going to the shops. So as a community, discouraging bad practices like putting kids on a shikundu, weaning too fast or too early before 6 months, or thought that people do, which is just a mayere and pap. And that's what the child consumes day in, day out. I don't know as adults, we also get tired of eating the same thing. I don't know why we punish kids like that. So just educating each other, supporting each other, and making sure we breastfeed and family spacing. That's what we can do as a community. We can also try to come up with, to get the joblessness. It's very difficult because I want to employ people, but I don't have the means. But just making sure that we help our youth to be productive and active in a way as much as we can. I know it's hard, but there are local communities that have small projects, whether it's mentorship or something, or just coming up with products that you can sell so that our youth are out of the streets and that we don't have too many unwanted pregnancies and kids suffering from malnutrition as a result. Yeah.
Dr. Nghaamwa, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
That was Paediatrician Dr. Nghaamwa speaking to us this evening on the matter of malnutrition. When we come back, we talk about the NBC Battle of All sporting event that took place over the weekend. We'll be right back.